Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Linda Jordan with Strategic Moves Realty. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
And today we're going to talk about smart sizing, and so that's a new term for me. And so I guess the question really becomes is when you're starting to think about moving because you're a realtor, thinking
Correct.
about downsizing, and so when do you find that it's the best time for someone to start thinking about downsizing or smart sizing, as you like to call it?
Well, actually, I would say the best time is today. And the reason I say that is because smart sizing is something that we do through all stages of our life. We don't have to, accumulate and live in a certain place until one day there's like a magic, cutoff, and all of a sudden you have to lose everything that you have. And so I encourage people when that first child is going to college that you kind of start smart sizing some of your space and things there. Otherwise, you become a storage unit, for them until they're about 35. So I always say it's always a good time to get smart.
And so I'm thinking you've met some of my children, and so because I'm
Exactly.
pretty sure I have things in the garage and
Right, the attic, exactly.
and I can probably speak from personal experience. Sometimes it's hard getting started, thinking about downsizing and things like that. So what kind of suggestions do you have for people who want to get started? Because I'm probably one that could use some of those handy suggestions.
It's there's various ways to get started, and our goal is to always sort of remove the overwhelm factor of getting started. So you can start by simply going to the room that you least use in your home and kind of working that direction. You can also employ the services of a professional organizer. That sometimes, and I always say people are looking for what's the best gift we could give mom and dad for Christmas. The gift of an organizer could be something that is very, very welcomed. It pulls the children out of the mix from having to, go through things or maybe even get into some of those struggles, where a kid, we talk about our kids being the IKEA generation and everything goes, everything's trash, and mom and dad want to hang on to more things. So a professional organizer is a really good way to start as well. And that's a super gift idea.
Well, I have a lot of sentimental, attachments to things,
Yes.
you know, where I don't think my kids do as much as I do. And I think
Yes.
that, my mom has a whole lot of sentimental attachments to stuff that we're now trying to, she's now being really good about getting rid of stuff. And
Right.
I understand that's hard. And so the kids just say, you still have some stuff you got to get rid of, kind of thing that's, real helpful.
Exactly.
So
There's also very creative things that people can do with sentimental things. And that is if you are in a decluttering or a space where you're trying to get rid of things, one of the things we suggest is like a photo memory book where you photograph the items and then you catalog them in like a beautiful coffee table book. And Shutterfly is a great option for something like that. So there's all sorts of little tips and tricks that we can do with stuff and the sentimental attachment that we have.
yeah, and so because I have a crocheted quilt that uh, that my mother-in-law did for me when we first got, when I was first married, and
Right.
uh, and so I have a real sentimental attachment to that. She hand
Absolutely.
knit this nice little blanket. The kids are like, "Yeah, I don't want it." And
Right.
so
Right. Right.
so somebody else is going to get a nice, lovely blanket, lovely blanket. So
Right. And I think we also figure out ways to incorporate those items so that we can enjoy them in our years when we know that passing it to our children is not going to maybe necessarily have as much meaning. And so we either display it as art or, like I encourage people with China, use it. Dine on
yeah,
your china. There's no reason to keep it packed away.
Yeah, mine's been in a china cabinet for the last 19 years, and the
Right.
kids are like, well, we don't want it. So if you don't
Right.
use it, it's going,
Exactly.
And I look at it and think, man, what was I thinking when I picked that selection?
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
yeah, so yes, I can appreciate that. But let's talk about the kids for a minute because mine have no sentimental, they don't really have any sentimental attachment to much.
Right.
Is it a good idea to let them help? And should we? Yes, no? What do
You
you
know,
say?
I would say, it's important to be objective about the relationship. And I'll tell you, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen a very beautiful setting where a mom sat in a chair and the daughter had all of mom's, they were going through clothing. And so she had clothing racks set up and she would pull off each item. They would discuss, where she might wear it again, or she pulled off some things that were obviously very 80s inspired and said, we can let these go. So that mom and daughter had a great relationship and that worked well. I've also seen, a daughter come in and say, Mom, everything you have is hideous. It's ugly. It all needs to go. And mom's feelings were hurt. So you kind of have to evaluate the relationship as far as which path you want to go down. And in a situation like that, a professional organizer is very objective, and you're going to avoid the relationship issues and hurt feelings and things like that. So each case is a little different, I would have to say.
Yeah. So eventually, I'm going to sell my home because I'm fixing to build the last one, and so my house is 19 years old. So, what kind of updating should someone do, like me or anybody else that's thinking about selling? Because you don't really want to spend a bunch of money not to make any money, and
Right,
so,
right.
so what kind of updates are good, and what kind of updates should we not do?
So it's important. You bring up a very valid point. It's important to look at the ROI, or return on investment, on any dollars that you would be putting in the home. I've walked into homes before where the entire home needed, it needed an overhaul. So in that situation, you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. You can't really spend just a little bit of money and do one or two things when the entire house is going to need attention. A home that's a bit newer, it might be just a fresh paint job, and it could be, if you were going to spend a few more dollars, it might be investing in updated countertops and backsplash, things to kind of bring the home current. If you have a project that's large, we have like a concierge service where you come in and you literally renovate the home and that service gets paid at closing. So you would come in on something like that with the idea of, we're going to spend $30,000 to $50,000 so that we can net, $70,000 to $80,000 to $100,000 more on the property. That's more of a bigger undertaking, and that's typically when someone has moved out of the house as well. So we evaluate each of those individually to see, does it make sense to invest at that level, and what would the return be? But a lot of homes, it could be just, like I say, that full, paint job inside and out is probably the most inexpensive way to refresh and make a house smell and feel newer.
Yeah. So, what kind of things do you talk to clients about if they're thinking about moving, out of state? Not necessarily just down the street to an independent living or something, but they're literally moving, a distance to be close to children. Because I have clients that'll do that. They
Right.
live here and then they'll move to another state, or to the other side of Texas, which almost feels like you're going to another state.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I will say, the beautiful thing about our network is that our seniors network is nationwide and our real estate network is global. So we have been able to, cross the pond, so to speak, and connect people. in Houston, we live in such, a diverse and global environment. So we have families that do come here from all over the world. And when we're able to connect, so say if someone's trying to move mom and dad here from Tennessee, we can help them sell the home in Tennessee. If someone is leaving here to move to family closer, out of state, we can sell the home here, and then we can connect them locally with another senior related professional. So we sort of metaphorically put our arms around our clients, if that makes sense. And we're also coordinating things at that level with not only their adult children or their influencers, but maybe their CPA or their attorney, their financial advisor, because obviously there's financial consequences, of a move, and what does that look like for our clients. So it's not just stick a sign in the yard and boogie, so to speak.
So you mentioned a CPA, and so I know a lot of clients are always concerned about, is there tax implications in selling houses, and so what do you tell them?
I typically tell them that that's a conversation that we do need to have with their CPA or their financial advisor, depending on, for instance, in Houston, I've seen, someone sell a very small home in a very prestigious area that maybe they built the home in 1950. And so now, the dirt is worth more than the home. And maybe they're downsizing, maybe they're still purchasing, a property elsewhere. But you're going to have, the capital gains implication pops up. So, we'll get on a phone call, if they choose to, include us, we can put a phone call together with their financial advisors, CPAs, and talk about that and give that professional the information. This is what we think the house is going to sell for. The home's been paid for years. There are no liens on the home, things like that. So we're kind of teeing all of those line items up for the advisor then to kind of advise us going forward, where do we need to be budget wise? And if there are implications, preparing that individual for what that may look like and where those funds would come from.
Perfect. And so Linda, if somebody wants you to help them and transition from their home to somewhere else, how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach me by phone or text at 713-826-5145, or by email, linda@strategicmovesrealty.com.
Perfect. Well, I just want to thank you for being on the show today, because it's fabulous information always. And we look forward to having you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.